we're very, very excited to be here and to represent GH and the School for Healthy Living. We've been working with the Myasthenia Gravis Foundation of Illinois for probably 6 months now, on the tail end of starting a clinical opportunity with University of Illinois Chicago in looking at how to bring, as Joan said, exercise properly dosed and nutrition to help patients with myasthenia gravis. So I'll take one step back and share a little bit about what the GH method for folks with myasthenia gravis is, and then we'll talk a little bit about the clinical trial that we're doing. And again, fortunately, we have our lead medical, I don't know if we call medical director in the trial, but Dr. Jang here as well. So I'm excited to be able to speak in front of Dr. Jang and thank UIC as well as MGFI for supporting the opportunity. There's a lot of organizations representing a lot of patient groups that do advocacy. To have a group here in Illinois so committed to not just following research, but to creating and funding original research is something I think that's really exceptional. And so I'd like to thank, again, the membership, the board, and the leadership of MGFI for really having the vision to say, we're not going to wait and consume what everyone else in the world produces, but in the spirit of helping to improve the quality of life for people with myasthenia gravis, and ultimately to change the experience of having the disease, it's important that patients and patient groups get together and say, we're going to make a change and we're going to make a difference. And again, that's part of the project that we're now in the midst of collaborating on. So the GH method is an exercise protocol, a medically based exercise protocol. Patients come to us 2 hours a week, 1 hour each time. That's all. It's integrated deeply in psychology, and we work closely with the Adler School of Professional Psychology on making the exercise component the critical part when it needs it, and the psychological component the critical part when it needs it. And for folks that are suffering from myasthenia gravis, it's hard to imagine going to a gym, and yet the standard of care many doctors will offer is exercise is a good thing, but how do you do it? And what do you do? And how can you feel good about it? And where do you start? And that's really what we've developed together with UIC in creating a protocol that's aimed particularly at patients with myasthenia gravis in the context first of our clinical research trial. So what we do, which is so important and so different, and this is, I can't even begin to tell you how far away it is from anything you might think of as exercise. This is not a Zumba class, it's not the TRX 90, it's not aerobics, it's nothing like that. It's very carefully dosed exercise, lifestyle coaching, and with psychology coming from it. So we begin with really assessing where people are in their lifestyle, in their energy, in their physical strength, down to each part of the body. That initial assessment helps us understand how to start somebody in a very safe place. We have patients that come to us, one of my favorites I always mention, it's a 94-year-old who hadn't exercised in 40 years. And so the place where we had to start him was very different. We have patients that come to us in the middle of chemotherapy where they can't drive themselves to us. And so we have to come sometimes, leave the facility and come to where others are and figure out where are they physically? Where can they begin? And that's the key for us, is finding the beginning point so that we don't expect or ask somebody, okay, your doctor said you should exercise. I'm sure you're in pain and you're tired. Let's go and, yippee yahoo rah rah. And again, that's why I think exercise is in the standard of care, and yet it's not something that many people have the opportunity to really experience. And as we looked with Dr. Jang and Dr. Rowan's help into the literature, there's surprisingly little clinical work that's been done on patients with myasthenia gravis and exercise. And there should be. There's a lot to suggest that it can be a remarkably helpful step for people to improve quality of life. And I love, and I appreciate Ed said, strength and hope. We really believe that the hope of being involved in doing something new is powerful, but that there's also hope from feeling stronger. That we all get hope when we feel a little bit better today than we did yesterday, and we can recognize more days in a row of feeling a little bit better can lead us to a more optimistic place. And I think that's a key for us and for the component of the psychological method, is to really recognize that patients are on a journey of managing difficult care, changes in life, and energy and fatigue. And our job is to both physically help people reset, find out where they can start, and take them through a very carefully, you'll hear me say the word dosed exercise program. The dosing is the key. Also from the psychological side, to really make sure that all the benefits of getting engaged with your body, changing exercise program, thinking about lifestyle and sleep, that all of that has as important of an impact as, of course, the exercise. And so on some days are good days and we really just focus more on exercise. Some days are more bad days, and we really focus on helping people feel more in control of their bodies and of their life by participating in the program. One big difference, and I only have a few minutes today, one big difference in what we do is the exercise program focuses on energy conservation. So we tell everybody, you're not going to feel tired. You're almost never going to feel tired. Our job is not to necessarily ask you, so what do you think about exercise and what might you remember from when you were young? I don't know about you. When I was young, I used to run around in circles and think that was really fun. I found GH because I had a chronic health problem that GH helped me with, and I couldn't exercise anymore until I had a professional in a one-on-one environment really assess what I was able to do, walk me through it, and again, that started my career at GH. So by focusing on energy conservation, we really bring somebody into the moment, into their body, and into the exercise. So there's a strong element of mindfulness that has to come in order to really get energy conservation. So everything, and if you're watching a session, and sometimes it looks silly because it's such a focus on the angle, the motion, where somebody's head is. But what that's done for us is get dramatic results in patient populations that don't necessarily have the opportunity to walk into a public gym and say, let's go. And so that incredible focus on energy conservation allows this to be additive in people's life, so that instead of feeling more tired when you're done, you feel your circulation going, and the dosing was such that your body's left with the energy to now start to change your metabolism and change your strength. So in fact, what we found, and again, we're in the midst of a couple of clinical projects, what we found is 60–65% of the energy it takes after exercise is the recovery part. It's not what you do while you're exercising. So we have to really help educate folks how to be so careful with what they do so that that evening and the next day and the next day, their body has all the energy it needs to start to create changes. And that's why we've been able to take folks, again, in different environments, like folks that are in the middle of chemo, who can't necessarily walk upright, and start and find a starting point, leave them with enough energy to recover, and where they might have thought, well, I would have loved to exercise, but I'm tired. Now they look forward to being engaged in doing everything that they can do, and having a professional coach who's there, making sure that they recognize the benefits of this aren't just in one muscle, but the benefits of it are also in their life. And again, that's a key part of the psychological component. I think I can announce it, I'm not sure, but we're in clinical trials, as I mentioned, with others. So we first met Dr. Rowan from the UIC Neuromuscular Center, and now Dr. Jang through a program we're doing at UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago, with their Department of Transplant Surgery. So we've been in a clinical trial nearly 6–7 months now, working with people right after kidney transplants. The early outcomes of that are so promising that now UIC has funded an extension of that clinical trial. Those are folks after kidney transplants, they had renal failure. They have literally no muscle mass left in them. And so they start out in a very weak place. And I was there, I had the pleasure to be there when Dr. Benedetti, who's the head of the Department of Surgery at UIC, first introduced us to the folks with the folks that work with patients with myasthenia gravis. And he described the GH method, I think, more succinctly and better than I ever could. And he said that, and he was talking to a group of doctors, so this is Dr. Benedetti, and he said, physical therapy has a part, but it's failing us. And a bunch of doctors in the room looked around and said, what's wrong with physical therapy? And of course, there's nothing wrong. He said, when our patients have a pain in their shoulder, a problem with balance, when they need to walk a little bit more or better again, physical therapy is great. When what our patients need is stimulation of the overall muscular skeletal system, physical therapy has no standard of care. If it's not reacting to a pain, but stimulating an overall energy, overall muscles, which leads to all kinds of positive psychological impact, that's not the role of physical therapy. And it is the role of the GH method. So we'd look at from assessing people from a physical perspective, from a mental perspective, so we can maximize all the energy that they have in order to start changing their body in a way that is a little bit unexpected because, again, the energy used is so little, and build that up with the psychological coaching to help people make better lifestyle choices, nutrition changes, and other things that will just start to compound this without ever feeling tired. We're doing clinical work with North Shore Hospital with people with high-risk cardiac events as well as chronic kidney disease. We're doing work with Northwestern and osteoarthritis. And again, and I can't say this enough, because of the vision that the folks on your board and the folks involved with MGFI had, we're able to do a clinical trial so early now with patients with myasthenia gravis, as well as the leadership from Dr. Jang and her team. So what we're doing now is a 12-week study. The paperwork is just getting done. The paperwork for all of this is never any fun. So thanks so much for pushing that. And it's a feasibility study. It's the beginning. As I said, nowhere in the world that we could find is there much clinical research being done on exercise and myasthenia gravis. And again, we add so many elements to it with the psychological, with the dosing, and it's a very different frame and perspective. So original work is being done here. The first step is a 12-week feasibility study that's happening because of the leadership here, and that'll take us to seeing how does it change people's lives? What's the physical impact of only 12 weeks, only 24 sessions? What's the psychological impact? Can we already start to see a shift in quality of life? Can we already start to see a shift in optimism and self-efficacy? Let's measure the changes in strength and endurance. And again, in 12 weeks, it's just the beginning. But that's the kind of support that we have here from you, I see and from you, to start original research that we think has the possibility, the hypothesis is, can really start to change what it is for folks to live with myasthenia gravis, and to imagine, instead of the body just going one direction, to take some control, take some charge, and do what you can with the energy you have to improve and change your life. So what I'll really end with is one more time, a big warm thanks. I know it's, sitting in the room, it's hard to imagine that this clinical work is really leading all over the place. The opportunity for us to bring in a protocol designed for you with support of MGFI and UIC to find, again, I'll say it, not just strength and hope, but hope in finding strength. Thank you very much.